everyone, and welcome back to Simcyp Technical Webinar. My name is Xian Pan. I'm part of the Translational DMPK group at Simcyp. I will host the session today. Today's topic focuses on Simcyp Report Assistant. Before we start the talk, I'd like to request that everyone stays muted during the presentation. Should you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or post your queries in the chat box. We have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. We will address all of your questions. We are recording the presentation, which will be available on YouTube shortly. Next slide, please. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Harry Moore. Harry is an associate research scientist in Simcyp Certara. He has been involved in various projects, including the development of Simcyp Report Assistant, data management, and also the improvement and development of the Simcyp compound files. So in today's talk, he will cover how to use the Simcyp Report Assistant, the key features of it, and some new features of the current version 23, and he will also give you a demo. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Harry. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the way I'm going to structure this, I'll give everyone sort of an overview in the presentation slides, and then we'll move over to a demo where we can have a little bit more of a in-look depth, and hopefully that clears up any confusion that you might have through the slides. But yeah, we'll start with what actually is the Report Assistant. The Report Assistant is a plugin for Microsoft Word. So once you've downloaded it, you should see it appear in your toolbar at the top. It'll be next to where you have home, insert, and all of that. You can just flick over to it. And what it allows you to do is to upload your Simcyp simulator results directly into Microsoft Word. And then you can use this Report Assistant in order to output tables and figures for report writing. So what we have here in this insert are just a bunch of templates that we've designed in order to help users write PBPK model reports. It's available from the Simcyp members area upon request. So if you've not used it before, we can go through this and you'd like to use it, just send a request to Simcyp support and you should be able to get a download file. I'll also want to mention that there is another demo of the Simcyp Report Assistant back from version 21. It may be a little bit outdated now, but it's very good for if you're brand new to it and you just want to learn how to use it. So to use the Report Assistant, as I said, it's compatible with Simcyp simulator results. What you have to do, though, is go to your Simcyp outputs within the simulator screen. That's what I've got here. If you go to Simcyp outputs down to actions, what you usually see is the output to Excel is always highlighted, but you just need to activate this save database file. And then once you set a path for the file to be saved in, it will then create a database file as well as your Excel output. The Report Assistant is also compatible with .xml files. These are generated with a Simcyp Excel plugin, and you can use them to add observed data that you may want to overlay onto concentration profiles. They work within the Simcyp simulator, but they also work with the Report Assistant. And then once those files are opened within Word, they can be selected and they'll fill the tables and figures of the templates in Report Assistant. So yeah, what you'd see is just this little open results database or open observed files. It'll open your file explorer and then you'll have all of your databases here and you can upload as many as you like. So we'll start off, we'll go through all of our key features within the insert tab here and we'll just explain sort of what they do and how to use them. So we'll start off with the first of our three tables. We've got our table of inputs. What this is that it'll generate a separate table for each selected compound within your data files. It contains all the key input parameters and models used in that compound, And then this table can also be manually edited once generated. So once you click on this spin at the top, it'll open up a separate tab on the right-hand side of your Microsoft Word screen. You'll have two drop-downs, one to select the data file. So this is everything you've opened here in your results databases. And then it will read those and it'll tell how many compounds that you've got within your simulation. So in this example here, we've got a substrate and an inhibitor. It'll read those. If you've just got a substrate, just substrate would show. And likewise, if you have more compounds, they'll all show. But once you've selected what you want to output, you hit insert. It'll create a little table with a caption telling you what's within it. And yeah, it will have your phys-chem parameters, your absorption, distribution, and elimination. Although it's not in this example, if you have transporters as well, it will also add those into the table of inputs. And yeah, like I said, you can actually edit this. It's a table within Word. It's not a picture or anything like that. If you hover over this, you can add a new column if you need to add references. And likewise, if you want to remove rows for whatever reason, you can do that. The second of our tables are the table of trial design. Yeah, this is fairly self-explanatory. It's a table with the demographic details of the virtual population used within your simulation. So what you'll get once you select your Simcyp data file, you'll get all of your population details, the name, the size, and the demographic details like age and proportion of females. But you'll also get your study information, so the duration of this virtual study. And then the last of our key tables is the dosing regimen. This is the same thing again. You're selecting your data file, and then you can sort of select your substrate. And then depending on what the substrate is doing, it'll give you different information. So for a single dose, it's fairly simple. It's just giving you the dose amount, the route of administration, and when that was administered. And then for your multiple dose, it'll add a bit more information given the number of doses and the dose interval. So next up, we've got our results. This is sort of like the bulk of the report assistant. It's quite a large part of it, so I'm just splitting it in half to go through each one at a time, and then it'll make more sense when we go through the demo. But the first half of our results is sort of the setup. So what we have here is multiple drop downs. So once you upload your data file, up here at the top, you can select your profiles, and you get a list of profiles that are active within the data file. You can then choose your PK parameters that you also want to output. Worth noting that you can select multiple of these at one time. And then lastly, you've got your concentration and time units, as well as what you're looking at, your plasma concentration. So you can choose unbound, bound, or you can be looking at blood instead of plasma concentrations. Yeah, these drop downs are basically just giving you the settings and the conversions for the figures that you're going to be generating in the second half of these of this results tab. So yeah, when you go down then to your list of figures that you can output, this will depend completely on what's active within the data file again, just to keep everything nice and neat and not giving you a bunch of things that you can't use and might confuse you. So yeah, this is just the list of figures that we have by default. And then say you upload your data file and it's using atom, you've now got regional atom fractions that you can output. And because you've also selected a profile, you've got your percentage metabolized and eliminated. But yeah, these templates can be selected, and then depending on what you chose, as I showed in the previous slide, from your data files and from the PK profiles or parameters that you've selected, it'll then populate the tables or the graphs with with the results of your simulation. Each template, when it's selected, will expand, and there'll be a bunch of other options. So for something simple, just like this table, all you're choosing is whether you want mean, median, or geometric mean. But then for something like a concentration profile, which might be a bit more complicated, you can choose to have it with interaction. You can remove percentiles. You can also change the percentile numbers here. This is also where you can overlay your observed data. So the .xml files that you've uploaded, you can now put them in here, and it will output a concentration profile, for example, with overlaid data on top. Yeah, so something to note, multiple can be done at once. It's not just a one at a time thing. Say you're running through multiple different simulations and you want to create a report on each one, you can just dump out all your results one by one and then write your report. There are also further options. This is more to sort of change the look of your figures. They can be found in a settings tab. I'll go through that in the demo. It's probably not best to show it on slides. It will just make it more confusing than it actually is. Next up, we've got our multiple studies table. So this is like our table to show DDI performance that we made. It's separate from the results due to the fact that we want you to be able to include multiple different data files and observed data within one table rather than a new figure or a new table for each separate data file or simulation. So with that in mind, the PK parameters that are available are Cmax, AUC, and clearance ratios. The table will also generate a value for your simulated over observed ratio, so you can demonstrate how accurate your predictions are. This is what you'll see in the report assistant. So you're choosing your parameters and your plasma profile here, but what's different is that your database files and your observed data are being populated down in the table. So once you do that, it would look something like this, for example. So I've uploaded my databases here. The report assistant has read what compounds are within that specific database and are given me an option of what compound I want to display in that row. And then I've also uploaded my observed data. Now, something just to note is that my observed data file is all the same file, but when I do my output, I'm getting different observed data. That's because the report assistant will read what study you're doing, and as long as it's worded the same as what's within the .xml file, it will then read it out sort of perfectly, and you'll be able to just contain all of your information within one Excel file, and you won't have to mess around making multiple different observed data files. And then lastly, for our key features, we've got descriptions. This is sort of like a time saver for people when you've used the Simcyp simulator, you've made a prediction, or you've used one of the models, and you need to sort of explain how you've done that or what the model is actually doing. What this is just a list of it will give you a description of a prediction method or that model. It will be fully referenced, and it will also contain equations where appropriate. And it is also written by members of our science team. So for example, the Adam model, if you've used it, you may have to write a long explanation of what that actually entails. Rather than doing that, you can just use our Adam model description. It'll output a nice paragraph, and it'll also give you a nice figure as well, which will hopefully explain to anyone reading your report what it actually is. So we'll go through now what's new for version 23. The report assistant, like the Simcyp simulator, is a yearly release. It comes a few months after the release of the Simcyp simulator usually. So we're always adding new things, and we're always trying to improve on existing features. For version 23, what we've done is we added transporter profiles. This is sort of slightly different. We wanted to have a dedicated space in the results for that, given that you can choose different organs. So if you've got a compound that's using transporters in the intestine, liver, kidney, or brain, you can then select that from the organ drop-down, as well as the location and the functionality. So you'll be greeted with something like this once you've selected it. And then when you insert, you'll get a clearance profile of your transporter right here. And then the second main thing that we added to version 23 is VBE reporting. So VBE is the virtual bioequivalence module. It's a separate thing within the Simcyp simulator. can't go into too much detail into what VBE actually is in this talk. That's something completely different. But if you're already familiar with it and you use it, you can now use the Report Assistant as well. The issue we were having is that the way it works, it just produced a unique database that wasn't compatible. So what we've done is we made a new button here, and when you select it, you get a different sort of toolbar. It's a little bit reduced, but that's because it's more focused on what you need for a bioequivalence report rather than a PBPK model report. So you'll get your table of bioequivalence parameters as well as the plasma profile. So yeah, that's sort of the overview, and I want to give everyone a quick demo using sort of a template that I've made. So this is just an example. Say if we were wanting to do a compound performance report for ibrutinib. So this is within the Simcyp simulator, and say that you're producing this for you use different versions of the Simcyp simulator, and you've got a template, and rather than having to write it brand new, go through all the different Excel files, you can just use the Report Assistant. So to get started, I'm opening up my results databases. When I open it up here, I'm greeted with these, so I can just select multiple at once, and I can hit open. Just given the size of the database files, it can take a little bit of time, but if you just wait, it will be just fine. There you go. So they're all uploaded, and I also want to upload my observed XML files. Okay, so all of my data is now uploaded to the Report Assistant, and I want to start filling in my report. So first up, I want to have a concentration time profile. So to do that, I'm going to go to Results. I'm going to choose my concentration profile results database. I want my substrate concentration. I also want it in nanograms per milliliter. I'm happy with it in hours, and I'm happy with it being a plasma concentration. I don't want an auto-generated caption for now. So once I've set all of the base settings here, I can now go to the concentration profile here. And then I'm just selecting, the settings for this concentration profile. I just want it to be mean. I want to overlay my observed data. I want percentiles in there as well, and I'm happy with them being 5th and 95th. And yeah, I just want a linear profile, that's fine. And I just hit insert. Here you go. I have my profile generated for me right here. Now, I'm a little bit unhappy with this one at the moment, just because I've got red markers for my observed data, as well as the line for the percentiles being red. And this is where the advanced settings come in handy. So if you click on that, it opens up, and you can sort of just change different things about your figures. So if I go to percentiles here, at the moment they're dashed and they're the color red. I don't want that. I'd like them to be gray. I also want my data points to be circles rather than triangles. And I also think they're a little bit too small, so I'll just make them a little bit larger. I also want my figure to have a log and a linear one side by side. So if I go to figures here, I can make it 2 charts per figure, which is selected. Now when I go to results, if I select log and linear, everything's the same. I've just changed the settings around a little bit. I now hit insert. And now I've got bigger lines, and I've also got a gray percentile here. I think what I've done, I needed to change the lower percentile as well in order to make that one gray. But yeah, it's now different from the one above. I've got 2 in one figure. They're labeled A and they're labeled B, so that when I'm writing my figure caption, I can say one's log and one's linear. And then for the second part, I'm just adding the graph of trial statistics. So this is working off my PK parameters. So now that I've activated it, they're selectable here. I want Cmax and I want Tmax in this one, just from the first dose. I want the median and percentiles. I've got no observed data this time. I hit insert, and again, labeled A and B, and I've got a graph of my trial statistics right here. Last up, I'll just demonstrate the multiple studies table. So right here, I've got AUC ratio, and I want Cmax ratio as well. I just need to fill it in with each database file. The observed data is all coming from the same place. You can see that the report assistant has read what's within the database. So I got ibrutinib and erythromycin. But you can see that it's read a different inhibitor as well. So it is reading what's within your data file. You just have to give it a bit of time to actually finish reading it. But if we go forward just with these two in the interest of time. Yeah, well, it won't let me. There we go. It did. That's fine. So we're getting our AUC ratio observed, we're getting our simulated, and then we're getting a simulated over observed ratio right here in the table. And then lastly, just for model parameters, we're just choosing a profile here, choosing the substrate, and we can insert. And there you go. That's all of our parameters in a table. But yeah, that's the Simcyp Report Assistant. If anyone has any questions or would like me to demonstrate something else quickly, I'll see if I can. But yeah, happy to take any questions about the Report Assistant.
Thank you, Harry. So yeah, as Harry said, let's move on to the Q&A session. We would like to hear what you think or any questions you have. You could either use the raise hand feature if you like to speak, or you could type your questions in the chat box so we could read them loud. While we're waiting for questions to come through, I like ask one questions. I think it's very useful feature, and I guess probably a lot of Simcyp users are not aware of this. You have provide quite a lot of different features people could use, but I guess they might have if they do have different like a request or for different features, they may think that'll be useful for them or for overall the Simcyp users. How can they get their requests through?
Yeah, so we have the Simcyp support email. If you have any sort of specific questions or trouble with the report assistant, if you put something in there, it'll almost definitely get passed on straight to me. And yeah, we also take any feature requests. Yeah, we always consider them every year. We look at what people have fed back to us, what they want to sort of add into there. Yeah, like what they're writing in their reports, but they can't quite do with the report assistant because sometimes people are writing, including stuff that maybe we're not including, and it's just good to get a perspective from outside the box. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, just send it to the Simcyp support email, and it should get straight to me.
Okay, so we have we actually got a few questions on the chat box. So the first one is from Eman asking first, yeah, it's a great presentation. And the question is, will the presentation be posted or shared soon? I think I can answer that. Yes, the recording of this presentation will be on YouTube. Typically, it will take 1 or 2 days after this presentation. You will be able to find it on the YouTube. You could just simply type in the Simcyp Report Assistant, and that might be the easiest way for you to find the right recording on the YouTube. And we also get a question from Jin asking for the initial database preparation. Anything we should pay attention? Can we just load the workstation file?
There shouldn't be anything that you need to like specifically do with the database. If I'll just go back to the Simcyp screen. I guess the only thing to do is sort of best practice sort of things is to, if you want to find them later, to try specify a file name, just because the auto naming folder can sometimes be a bit confusing, especially if you're running multiple ones within the same day, as they'll just give you the date and the time that it was run. But if the simulation runs fine and you get Excel outputs that aren't don't look wrong, everything should be within the database file as well.
Thank you. We have another question, which is from Natalia asking, is there a way to report the values of the parameters of a population? For these cases, where we need to build our own or change standard values.
Okay, so that would be in the case of maybe changing the distribution of ages or something like that. That's sort of what I'm assuming, but there actually, I guess there isn't at the moment. Would be something for us to think about. A lot of we're sort of just focused on the compound outputs, but yeah, that would be something to think about. But there's no way at the moment, I'm afraid.
Natalia, did that answer your question, or you want to ask it? Well, unmute yourself to.
Yes, I think that answers our question.
Thank you for confirming. Okay, Jacob, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi, Harry. Thank you very much for this presentation and this wonderful tool, which will be especially useful for the reports. I have a question about those XML files of observed data.
Yeah.
So if we have in this XML file only concentration time data, whether those Cmax and AUC will be calculated automatically with trapezoid method with this report assistant, or should we have specified in this XML file what was Cmax, AUC, etc.
Yeah. So the XML files, I guess there would be something that maybe there could be another webinar on altogether, but you have a separate one. So for concentration profiles, you make a PE file. So that's when you upload sort of the data points. It'll make like a curve almost, and that will output the concentration points on your profile. As for individual PK parameters, that's a different section of the plugin. So that would be the same one that I used for the multiple studies table. In that one, you list the study name and then you choose the PK parameter yourself. You add it in manually. So it won't calculate it from your profile, but you can add them in manually, and it's just a separate part of the Excel outputs. Sort of the best way I can explain it at the moment.
Okay, I was curious whether we could do that automatically. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we also get a question from Sibylla.
Hi, Harry. I think you did a very good job here, and thank you for the demonstration. I know how complicated that can be if you want to do that live. You jumped a little bit over in the demonstration that, you can also have the output of the legend. And I think that would be nice to know about it, what this legend would actually contain, because that is always, I think, a tricky part in the reports to have all the information in the legend. I think it would be nice if you can explain there a little bit on.
Yeah, so I mean, I can sort of redo this with the concentration profiles as an example, but what it will contain, it will be your it'll give the figure number, so that will be automatically updated as you add fins before and behind. It will sort of give a slight wording. I'm not sure how to explain it. Like a wording that sounds like it would be a PBPK report. You may need to change some things just because of how things are worded in the like in the file name and stuff like that. So, for example, here it will say simulated and then tell you what it is. So it's a solid line is mean abrutinib, but it will also give you the file name, which you may not always want to include. So this is just sort of like a baseline to help you, but you should probably add and remove stuff that you feel is appropriate and not appropriate to include. You may not want your file name in there. But yeah, it's just giving a description of what is actually in the figure. And so we've got lower percentile, that's a dashed line, upper percentile, a dashed line, just so that there's no sort of confusion if you're not aware of what your settings are, sort of what each fin is demonstrating.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, we will now bring this webinar to a close. Thank you to Harry for guiding us through the Simcyp Report Assistant, and thank you to everyone for joining us for your attention and discussions. Should you have additional queries later on, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Harry, would you mind to pull out
I can get to the
last slide for me? So next technical webinar, it doesn't go to that slide. Make sure
there
I
we
get
go.
the day right. Okay. So our next technical webinar is scheduled for the 9th of October. So in this upcoming session, Melis, we'll talk about the SIWA model, particularly the transfer-based transporter activity assay. If you are interested in it, please register through the members area. Once again, thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a lovely day and goodbye.